The courtroom was heavy with silence. The moment the doors creaked open, every eye turned toward the back, expecting a hardened adult or a nervous witness. Instead, a small figure entered, a girl no older than 10, her hands gripping the leash of a golden Labrador, walking close by her side. The contrast between her tiny frame and the seriousness of the setting was jarring. She wore a pink cardigan that looked 2 sizes too big, and her sneakers squeaked softly against the polished wood floors. But it was her eyes that drew attention. Wide, distant, guarded, the bailiff guided her toward the witness stand, speaking gently, almost reverently, as if addressing something breakable. The girl, Ella, didn't speak a word. She didn't need to. The dog, Max, seemed to sense every flicker of emotion in her. He moved in perfect sync with her hesitations and steps, trained not just to assist her, but to understand her unspoken pain. His leash was taut with alertness. Everyone in the room knew why she was here. She was the key witness in a disturbing child abuse case, a case that had shocked even the most jaded officers. The man accused sat stone-faced at the defense table, avoiding eye contact. The prosecutor had already explained that Ella had chosen not to speak during questioning. She hadn't uttered a full sentence in over a year. The trauma had sealed her voice behind a wall. Only one creature had managed to reach through. Max. The judge, a silver-haired woman with years of hardened experience, looked over her glasses and spoke gently. Ella, you don't need to say anything today. Just being here is enough. And you can sit with Max, of course. Ella gave the faintest nod, not to the judge, but toward Max. It wasn't dramatic, a subtle gesture so small it was nearly invisible. But something shifted. Max, who had been sitting obediently, suddenly rose and sat in a protective stance in front of Ella, eyes locked in the direction of the defendant. His ears perked, his posture tense. A murmur rippled through the courtroom that no one had expected. Movement. Ella hadn't spoken, hadn't cried, hadn't flinched. But now her dog was staring straight at the man on trial, unmoving. The prosecutor paused mid-sentence. The defense attorney raised an eyebrow, clearly unsure of what was happening. The judge leaned forward slightly. The atmosphere in the room shifted from cautious anticipation to unsettled curiosity. Ella, the judge said slowly, did you give Max a signal? No reply. The girl's face remained unreadable, but her fingers lightly twitched, barely noticeable to the average eye. And again, Max responded. This time, he stood and positioned himself between Ella and the defendant, still silent, but undeniably guarding her. Gasps echoed from the back row. The judge raised a hand to quiet the room, but even she appeared stunned. She scribbled something down, then looked at the bailiff. 10-minute recess. Everyone clear the room. Lawyers stood. Journalists whispered urgently into recorders. The defense lawyer leaned into his client with a clenched jaw. The judge exited her bench with unusual speed. And Ella? She remained seated, stroking Max's head, her fingers trembling only slightly. She hadn't spoken a single word, but something had been said. Loudly. Outside in the hallway, a seasoned reporter turned to a junior intern and whispered, "Did you see that? That wasn't just obedience. That dog, he knows something." And in that instant, the quietest person in the courtroom had turned into the most powerful presence of all. No one could explain how, but something had just changed, permanently. And it all started with a girl's silent signal and a dog who listened better than anyone else in the room. When the courtroom emptied for recess, whispers swirled like leaves in a gust of wind. Reporters huddled in corners, some already texting headlines. Others glanced nervously at the closed door, where Ella and Max had remained, shielded from the growing storm outside. Behind those doors, the truth of Ella's story lay dormant too. Painful for most to understand, too raw for any courtroom transcript to fully capture. A year earlier, Ella had been placed in foster care after a concerned neighbor called 911. She'd heard muffled screams at odd-hour sounds that never seemed to come from a television. When officers responded, they found a clean home with a well-dressed man who insisted the child was simply troubled and prone to tantrums. Ella was silent then too, but her eyes told a different story. And when they noticed the bruising beneath her sleeve, everything unraveled. It wasn't just physical. The emotional and psychological damage ran deeper than anyone knew. In foster care, she refused to eat or sleep. She barely moved. Therapists tried games, drawing, toys, but she just stared out the window, arms wrapped tightly around her knees. No amount of coaxing reached her. Until Max arrived. He was part of a special trauma response canine program, trained not only to provide comfort, but to recognize signs of distress before they escalated. Unlike humans, Max didn't ask questions. He didn't use words. He just sat beside her, silent and steady, allowing her to exist without explanation. And that's what Ella needed. At first, she barely acknowledged him. But then one day, when she was crying in silence, Max placed his head in her lap. She flinched, but didn't pull away. Then, ever so gently, her fingers tangled in his fur. That was the first sign of life anyone had seen in weeks. Max had been there during therapy sessions, silently observing as Ella was gently encouraged to recall memories. She didn't speak, but she gestured. Sometimes she drew pictures. Sometimes she simply froze. And every time the topic shifted toward the man now sitting in court, Max would stiffen. Without being told, he reacted to her unspoken terror. Her heart rate would spike, her breath would quicken, and Max would place himself between her and the therapist, protective as a sentinel. He remembered the man's scent. The therapist noticed it too. They began documenting Max's behavior in every session. The pattern was unmistakable. Whenever Ella thought of the abuse, even subtly Max changed. He became still, tense, and alert. In the courtroom, no one but Ella and her support team truly understood what that first silent signal meant. The rest saw a dog reacting oddly. But her therapist, sitting silently in the gallery, recognized it instantly. Ella had communicated with Max in the only language she trusted: silent motion. Max had answered. Back in chambers, the judge reviewed Max's service credentials. His file was thick with certifications: emotional support, scent recognition, PTSD alert, trauma reaction. He wasn't a pet. He was an officer in his own right, trained to detect fear and memory triggers invisible to the human eye. When court resumed, the energy was different. The judge, now fully briefed, returned with a more solemn tone. "This is not a traditional testimony," she said, glancing around the room. "But it may be the most honest one we hear." Ella re-entered with Max at her side. This time, her steps were slower, more deliberate. The defendant shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Everyone was watching, waiting. Not for Ella to speak, but for Max to act. And yet, in that quiet courtroom, the most powerful voice still belonged to the one who said nothing at all. Because everyone knew, the story that followed would not be told in words. It would be told in the silence between a girl and the dog who knew her truth. When the courtroom resumed, the tension was thicker than before. The air felt electric, charged with something unspoken yet undeniable. Ella sat again beside Max, her posture rigid but composed. Max lay at her feet, but his eyes never drifted. Far from the defendant, he was quiet but not relaxed. Like a soldier watching the enemy, the defense attorney rose. He was sharp, seasoned, and already displeased by the attention this girl and her dog had commanded. In his mind, this case should have been easy to dismiss: no spoken testimony, no cross-examination. Just a silent child and a clever narrative of victimhood. But now, Now the courtroom had turned, and he didn't like it. He walked slowly to the center of the room, arms folded behind his back. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice laced with calm skepticism. "We're here to weigh evidence, not emotions. I remind you that no verbal testimony has been given. A dog's posture, no matter how dramatic, is not a legal statement." The judge did not interrupt. The defense continued. "We're being asked to believe that this child, traumatized as she may be, is speaking through gestures to a dog, who then performs actions we're told represent her truth. Is that reliable? Or is it emotional manipulation, packaged cleverly in fur and sympathy?" He turned to Ella. "With all due respect, if she cannot speak to us today, then we cannot assume guilt based on silence." Still, Ella didn't move, but Max did. The attorney, emboldened by the lack of response, presented a photo, the same courtroom image of the defendant during an earlier hearing. He held it up for Ella. Double quotes Ella. "Can you at least nod if you recognize this man?" he asked pointedly. Nothing. The courtroom held its breath. Ella's hand, barely noticeable, shifted. Two fingers brushed her pant leg in a slow curl, nothing deliberate enough to be called a command. But Max saw it. Max felt it. The golden Labrador stood up, slowly, deliberately. He positioned himself between Ella and the image. His body was rigid, his gaze locked on the defendant. A low, unmistakable growl echoed through the silent room. Every person turned toward the sound. Max didn't bark. He didn't lunge, but the message was crystal clear. This is the threat. "I remember him." The defense attorney flinched backward and lowered the image. "Objection," he started, but his voice cracked. The judge didn't speak. She simply raised a hand. Pause. Step back from the witness. The attorney hesitated, lips parted, unsure whether to press further. "Step back," she repeated. He obeyed, confusion replacing his confidence. The growl ceased. Max remained standing, but he no longer seemed to perceive imminent danger. Ella reached out and rested a hand on his back, grounding both of them. The judge leaned toward the court reporter. "Record the reaction of the service." Animal as part of the court observation. Murmurs followed. In the gallery. People exchanged wide-eyed glances. The defense lawyer's argument that Ella's silence made her unreliable was crumbling. In its place stood something far more powerful. Credibility that couldn't be faked. Back at the bench, the prosecutor rose. She approached the bench respectfully and requested that the therapist be brought in as a supplemental witness. The judge agreed. The defense objected, but the judge silenced him. This court recognizes that while Ella cannot testify traditionally, the judge said, her voice steady, there appears to be a meaningful form of nonverbal communication unfolding in real time. We will continue tomorrow with the presence of the therapist, and the dog remains in the courtroom. The session adjourned. Ella was escorted out gently, Max at her side. The cameras waiting outside the courthouse caught none of what had just happened, but inside, something had shifted dramatically. A growl had spoken louder than testimony, and a little girl had, once again, communicated the only way she knew how. Without a single word. The courtroom emptied once more, but this time, it wasn't just a scheduled recess. It felt like a collective exhale. The judge's voice had cracked slightly when she called for the pause, but no one blamed her. What they'd just witnessed had been unlike anything seen in that courthouse. And behind the judge's chambers, urgent whispers replaced the usual slow shuffle of court clerks and legal aides. Inside the private witness room, Ella sat on a soft bench, her eyes locked on the ground. Max leaned gently against her side, breathing slow and steady. She stroked his fur with mechanical rhythm, back and forth, back and forth. A nearby bailiff, unsure whether to speak or wait, hovered near the door. Finally, Ella looked up, He remembers him, she whispered. It was the first sentence she'd spoken that day. The bailiff, startled, leaned forward. Max? You mean he recognizes him? Ella nodded once, very slowly. He knew the moment we walked in. The bailiff rushed to inform the judge. Meanwhile, Ella's foster mother, granted permission to sit quietly outside the courtroom, entered the private room and wrapped her arms around her. You're so brave, she whispered. Ella didn't answer. She just held on tightly. Back in her chambers, Judge Rowan sat at her desk, reviewing Max's records. The folder was thick with details: scent detection training, PTSD alerts, behavioral coding, and memory response protocols. It was nearly as complex as a human resume, and more reliable than most. He'd been used in multiple cases involving veterans and abused children. Never once had his reaction been proven inaccurate. She sat back in her chair, weighing the facts. Dog, reacting instinctively, wasn't a traditional form of evidence. But this wasn't a traditional case. And in all her years on the bench, she had never seen a child so broken, and yet so carefully guarded by something so loyal. She made her decision. When the court reconvened, the judge addressed the room with unshakable clarity. This courtroom recognizes trauma response as an observable behavior. Given the unique circumstances, the therapy dog will remain with the witness, and his responses will be recorded as part of the proceeding. There were no objections this time. The defense attorney knew better than to challenge the judge's tone. He leaned back in his chair, silently fuming. Next, the judge addressed the room directly. For those who may still doubt whether trauma can be conveyed without speech, allow me to remind you, we are not here to enforce routine. We are here to uncover the truth. She called a brief sidebar with both attorneys and the court-appointed trauma specialist. It was agreed. The following morning, Ella's therapist would take the stand, and with her permission, they would demonstrate how Max had been part of Ella's recovery process. The jury, judge, and even the defense would witness what could not be put into words. That evening, outside the courthouse, news vans buzzed with anticipation. Something strange, something powerful, had unfolded behind closed doors, and though few had seen it, rumors had already spread. The dog growled. One reporter said breathlessly into the camera, not once but with purpose. Inside Ella's home, she curled up in bed, Max lying beside her like a silent guardian. For the first time in weeks, she allowed the nightlight to stay off. She reached a hand over and rested it on his head. He's not going to hurt me now, she said quietly, mostly to herself. Max exhaled and nuzzled her side. Tomorrow, she wouldn't be alone on that stand. Tomorrow, she wouldn't need to force words. She had Max, and he would remember everything for her, because sometimes truth doesn't shout. Sometimes it growls, and when it does, everyone listens. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. The buzz outside had drawn more than reporters. It had drawn attention from trauma experts, legal analysts, and advocacy groups across the state. No one wanted to miss what was about to unfold. A child's testimony without words, a dog's behavior as evidence, and a court brave enough to treat it with the seriousness it deserved. Ella sat quietly with Max curled at her feet. She looked tired but composed, her small hands resting in his fur. She no longer avoided the courtroom's heavy atmosphere. Something about Max's constant presence made the storm more bearable. She was still scared, but she wasn't alone. The judge called the session to order. Today, we will hear from Dr. Meredith Klein, the child's trauma therapist. Dr. Klein has worked with the witness for several months and is also certified in behavioral canine therapy programs. Dr. Klein, a woman in her early 40s with soft features and a voice like velvet, took the stand. She carried no laptop, No briefcase, just a thick folder and a calm presence that seemed to ease the tension. She began with a summary of Ella's condition. When Ella first arrived in my care, she exhibited signs of acute PTSD hypervigilance, mutism, emotional withdrawal, and fear-based triggers. Her trauma was so severe, traditional therapy methods were ineffective. She paused, making eye contact with each juror. Then Max was introduced. At first, he was just there to provide emotional safety. But soon, we noticed something extraordinary. She flipped open the folder and pulled out several pages of observation logs. Ella never verbalized her trauma, but Max responded to her. Body language, her scent changes, and even subtle shifts in her breathing. When shown neutral images, he was relaxed. But whenever we introduced something associated with the abuser images, names, sounds, Max would react. He'd become alert, stiff. Occasionally, he would growl or move in front of her. The judge allowed the pages to be entered as evidence. The defense remained uncharacteristically quiet. Dr. Klein continued. We began using Max's responses as indicators. His reactions were consistent, predictable, reproducible. Every time a certain individual's name was mentioned, or his, face shown, Max's body language changed dramatically. The prosecutor stepped forward. Would you say, Dr. Klein, that Max's reactions are reliable indicators of Ella's trauma associations? Yes, without hesitation, and not just from my opinion. Max's training, backed by certified programs, qualifies his behavior as structured therapeutic feedback. And has he ever reacted this way to anyone other than the accused? Dr. Klein shook her head. Not once, only him. A hush fell over the room. Then came the most anticipated moment of the day. The judge permitted a demonstration strictly controlled. Ella remained seated with Max, and Dr. Klein carefully pulled out several printed photos, placing them one at a time on a stand, about 10 feet in front of the child. The first few were of random people, unrelated individuals. Max remained relaxed. Then came the photo of the accused, an earlier mugshot. Max stood instantly, tense, his tail rigid, ears pointed. He positioned himself in front of Ella without hesitation. He didn't growl this time, but he didn't need to. His body said enough. It said, danger. Jurors watched in stunned silence. Dr. Klein addressed the room softly. This is how he reacted in every session. Max doesn't guess. He remembers. And what he's remembering isn't based on tricks or training. It's based on Ella's fear. The courtroom remained frozen, the weight of that truth pressing down on every heart. The judge nodded solemnly. Let the record reflect the dog's reaction under controlled, neutral circumstances. Ella reached out and touched Max's head, gently, calming him. For a moment, everything stopped. In that room, Max wasn't just a dog. He was a guardian of truth, a mirror to a child's silent suffering. And finally, after months of trauma, therapy, and silence, her pain had found its voice, and it had 4 legs. After the demonstration, silence lingered like thick smoke. No one dared speak. The jurors sat motionless, eyes still locked on Max, who remained protectively positioned in front of Ella. It didn't matter that he hadn't barked. He didn't need to. The conviction in his body language was louder than any alarm. It was instinctual, uncheckable, unrehearsed. Judge Rowan allowed a long pause before speaking. This court has witnessed something rare and significant. We will allow a final round of questions before closing statements. The prosecutor stood slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look at the defendant. Her focus was entirely on the jury. Today, you've seen how trauma can speak, without words. You've seen a child whose voice was taken from her, and a dog trained not just to comfort, but to recognize danger. You saw how Max behaved with every neutral image. And you saw what happened when he saw that man's face. She turned too. Ella and Max, I want to ask one final thing. The judge nodded permission. The prosecutor stepped forward and gently crouched down beside the witness box. Ella, she said softly, do you feel safe right now? Ella didn't speak. Her fingers tightened in Max's fur. Then came the signal dot. It was barely perceptible. A slight curl of her pinky finger near Max's collar. Max, resting for the last few minutes, rose again. Not with tension this time, but confidence. He nudged Ella's arm, as if reassuring her. She nodded faintly. Then, to the shock of everyone in the courtroom, Ella whispered, yes. It was the first voluntary word she had spoken in open court. The judge, prosecutor, and most of the jury stared, visibly shaken. The defense attorney looked down at his notes, suddenly unsure of everything. Max sat down beside her, content. The message was clear. She was safe now. She could speak. The defense stood hesitantly. His tone, once commanding, now trembled. Objection. Your Honor, this is ... This is speculative. We're putting too much weight on the animal. Judge Rowan leaned forward. Mr. Sanders, what we're witnessing is not speculation. It's trauma response, professionally evaluated and observed under controlled conditions. Your objection is noted and overruled. The courtroom was no longer with no further witnesses. The court proceeded to closing statements. The defense made a last-ditch effort, spinning theories about conditioned responses and emotional manipulation. But his words fell flat. They felt empty against the sincerity of what had just unfolded. The jury listened, but their minds were elsewhere. Still on the way Max had moved, the way Ella had whispered that one word ... Then came the prosecution's close. No child should be expected to relive horrors just to be believed, the prosecutor said. But Ella didn't come here alone. She brought truth with her. He walked in beside her. And we all saw it. You saw the fear. You saw the protection. And for the first time, Ella knew someone else would speak for her, even when she couldn't. Outside the courthouse, the story had already exploded. Social media lit up with hashtags. Hashtag Ella and Max. Hashtag the dog that testified. And hashtag silent truth. News anchors scrambled for airtime. People everywhere were watching, talking, crying and hoping not. But inside that courtroom, as the judge dismissed the jury to deliberate, one thing was certain. This wasn't just a case anymore. It was a turning point for the law, for child victims, and for every silent story buried beneath fear. And at the center of it all, a girl and her dog had stood tall without shouting, without fighting, just by being seen and heard, even if the hearing came, without a single bark. The jury returned after less than 2 hours of deliberation, their faces solemn yet resolute. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted palpably as Judge Rowan called the court back to order. The tension that had gripped the room since the start of the trial seemed to ebb, replaced by a quiet reverence for the courage of the girl and her dog. Ella sat with Max at her side. She looked different somehow, more grounded, stronger. The invisible armor she had worn for months seemed to have softened, replaced by a fragile but growing confidence. The judge gestured toward Ella. Would you like to say anything before the verdict is read? Ella took a deep breath, the first deliberate one anyone had heard in weeks. She looked at the jury and then at the defendant. Her voice was soft but clear. He hurt me, she said simply, but Max helped me. He never left. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Max shifted, nudging her hand, a silent affirmation of her words. The defense attorney's face paled. He opened his mouth to object, but thought better of it. The courtroom had changed. The narrative had shifted irreversibly. The judge nodded. Thank you, Ella. The clerk stood, and began reading the verdict. On the charges of child abuse, the jury finds the defendant guilty as charged on all counts. Gasps echoed, but this time they were filled with relief, justice, and even hope. Ella's foster parents embraced each other in tears. The prosecutor allowed herself a small smile of triumph. Max wagged his tail quietly, as if sensing the victory was more than just a legal win, it was a reclaiming of dignity. The defense attorney gathered his papers, shoulders slumped, and left without a word. As the courtroom emptied, reporters surged forward, eager to capture the moment. Outside, cameras flashed as Ella and her foster parents emerged, Max leading the way. Journalists shouted questions, but Ella simply smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up her face for the first time since the trial began. The story quickly spread. Headlines hailed Max as a hero, the dog who spoke when words failed. Advocacy groups hailed the case as groundbreaking, inspiring new policies to allow therapy animals to assist child witnesses nationwide. Inside the courthouse, the judge quietly reviewed the proceedings one last time. She drafted a proposal to expand the use of service animals in trauma cases. It was a step she hoped would spare others the silence Ella had endured. That evening, in the quiet of her new foster home, Ella sat on the floor with Max. She stroked his golden fur, whispering stories only he would understand. The darkness that had once consumed her was receding. For the first time, Ella felt safe to dream. And somewhere deep inside, she knew her voice was no longer locked away. Because sometimes, the loudest testimony comes not from words, but from the quiet courage to be heard. The verdict was just the beginning of a new chapter, not only for Ella, but for countless children whose voices had been silenced by trauma. The courthouse steps, once heavy with tension, now overflowed with hope. Cameras flashed, reporters clamored for interviews, and the story of Ella and Max spread like wildfire across the nation. Ella's foster parents, overwhelmed by the sudden attention, remained protective yet proud. Max, calm and steady as ever, wagged his tail with quiet dignity. For him, this was no surprise. It was simply the continuation of a bond forged in hardship and trust. In the weeks that followed, the judge's proposal to integrate service animals into courtrooms received swift bipartisan support. Legal experts hailed it as a breakthrough in trauma-informed justice. Advocacy groups launched campaigns, pushing for national adoption of policies that would allow dogs like Max to accompany vulnerable witnesses. Ella, now safe and surrounded by love, blossomed. The once silent girl began speaking more first in small sentences, then in stories. Her voice was shaky, but growing stronger every day. And through it all, Max was by her side, a constant reminder that she was never alone. One afternoon, Ella's therapist watched with tears in her eyes as Ella recounted a memory she had long buried. Max helped me find my words, Ella said. Simply, when I was scared, he was brave for me. Ella's story inspired others, children, parents, even judges, to reconsider how justice was delivered. No longer was silence a barrier. No longer was trauma a reason to doubt. On a sunny afternoon, the judge visited Ella's foster home. She knelt to meet Ella's eyes. "You have changed the way courts listen," she said warmly. "You and Max showed us that sometimes the loudest voices come from those who don't speak at all." Ella smiled, resting her hand on Max's head. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said, "because he hears me." The community rallied around the girl and her dog. Fundraisers raised money for more therapy animals. Schools invited Ella to speak about courage and healing. Her story became a beacon, a testament to the power of trust, silence, and the unbreakable bond between a child and her protector. And while the scars of the past would never fully disappear, Ella looked to the future with hope. With Max by her side, she had found strength beyond words. The courtroom drama that had once threatened to consume her became a story of survival and justice. Max, the hero with 4 legs, had done more than protect a little girl. He had helped her reclaim her voice, and that voice, once silent, now resonated with promise and courage for all who would listen.